Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to examine aspect ratios, crops if you will, on the GFX100s, how they affect your resolution and when they should be used. Let's get into it. The GFX100s has 7 different aspect ratio modes, 8 if we want to include the 35mm mode, which is essentially a crop mode. For the sake of brevity, we are going to focus on the 5 most commonly used aspect ratios. The first aspect ratio mode we will examine is 4:3. 4:3 uses the entire sensor on the GFX100s and yields the full 102 megapixel image. I personally try to use this aspect ratio as much as possible. After all, we do purchase the GFX100s largely for the maximum resolution, so why not use it? The second most common aspect ratio used by me is the 3:2 aspect ratio. This is the aspect ratio most used in full-frame digital SLRs. So if your client is expecting a consistent full-frame digital SLR aspect ratio, it makes sense to use the 3:2 aspect ratio. This may also be helpful when mixing images from full-frame 35mm cameras with the GFX100s images, just for consistency's sake. Now a few words about the 3:2 aspect ratio. Essentially, the GFX100s has 2 3:2 aspect ratio settings. One when you choose it in the image quality settings, and the other by default when you choose the 35mm mode. You may ask, what is the difference? Well, in the first instance, the full sensor is being cropped from the top and the bottom to make up the largest possible 3:2 aspect ratio with the GFX100s sensor. The pixel dimensions end up being 11,648 by 7,768. Now let's compare that to the 35mm crop mode that crops to the classic 34 by 24mm full frame angle of view. The 35mm crop mode creates a 60 megapixel image when using the GFX100s, an image that your adapted full frame lenses can cover with absolutely no vignetting caused by lack of sensor coverage. So if you are using any full frame lenses with an adapter that tend to vignette on the GFX100s, choose the 35mm crop mode to avoid this issue. Now do understand that a great deal of lenses don't significantly vignette on the GFX100s. You will run into the issue more with wide angle lenses wider than 40mm. I use the 50mm and 85mm Sigma art lenses without going into any crop modes and don't have any significant vignetting issues. Let's now talk briefly about the other crop modes. 16:9, which gives you an image size of 11,648 by 6,552 for a 76.3 megapixel image. In this aspect ratio, it matches the 16:9 ratio of Hollywood movies. So this mode might be helpful when you're trying to mix still images that are 16:9 with a 16:9 video frame. And the last ratio or crop I want to talk about is the 1:1 mode. The 1:1 mode will give you a square image that is 8,736 by 8,736, giving you a 76.3 megapixel image, the same number of megapixels as the 16:9 crop we spoke about a moment ago. You may choose the square aspect ratio if you are posting to Instagram, for example. In closing, picking your aspect ratio has to do with a number of considerations, including where you will be posting the images ultimately, the consistency when using multiple cameras, and client expectations. In short, you have many options to choose from to fit your needs with the GFX100s. Thank you for watching.